September 7th, 1978. Waterloo Bridge, London, late morning. A damp wind moves off the Thames, carrying the smell of river water and diesel. Traffic grinds across the bridge in uneven bursts. Buses sighing as they stop, taxis darting forward, pedestrians threading between coats and briefcases. It is not cold, not yet. But the air has that unmistakable edge of early autumn in London. The kind that seeps through wool. Georgi Markov is late. He stands near the south end of the bridge, glancing toward the clock he knows too well, shifting his weight as he waits for the bus that will take him toward the BBC. He is 49 years old, tall, slightly stooped, a man whose posture suggests he is used to thinking while walking, rehearsing sentences in his head before releasing them into the world. He feels the pressure before he feels pain, a sharp sting in the back of his right thigh, precise, controlled, almost polite. Markov turns instinctively. Behind him, a man bends to retrieve an umbrella from the pavement. A black umbrella. Ordinary. The man mutters an apology in a foreign accent. Not Bulgarian, Markov notices later when he tries to reconstruct the moment, and moves away into the crowd. Within seconds, the man is gone. Markov rubs his leg through his trousers. There is a small mark, no more than a pinprick. It barely bleeds. It barely hurts. He frowns, annoyed, more than alarmed, and boards the bus when it arrives. By the time he reaches work, a fever has begun to rise. But to understand why Georgi Markov did not run, did not shout, did not imagine death approaching him on a London bridge, you have to understand the years that led him there, the life he left behind, and the state that refused to let him go. Sofia, Bulgaria, early 1960s. The city wears its obedience carefully. Posters smile from walls, radios speak in approved tones, conversations lower when doors close. In cafes, people talk about football and theater, never politics. At least, not in voices that carry. Georgi Markov is already known. A trained chemical engineer by education, a writer by instinct, he has risen quickly through Bulgaria's cultural elite. His novels and plays are sharp, modern, uncomfortably honest. They sell well. They are performed often. He moves easily among actors, editors, party officials. For a time, the system tolerates him, even rewards him. But Markov is not careful enough. His writing begins to harden. Satire replaces subtlety. Characters begin to resemble real people too closely. Ambitious bureaucrats, hollow ideologues, men who speak of socialism while living like aristocrats. Audiences laugh in ways that make officials shift in their seats. Laughter in a police state is dangerous. Behind the scenes, reports accumulate. Conversations are noted. Friends are questioned. The State Security Service, Državna Sigurnost, opens a file. Not because Markov is plotting revolution, not because he is dangerous in any traditional sense, but because he is uncontrollable. 1969, Italy. Markov leaves Bulgaria with official permission to visit his brother. He does not return. At first, the regime assumes he will. Many do. Life abroad is harder than it looks. Exile is lonely. Language is a wall. Money is scarce. Markov surprises them. He moves to London, learns English, begins writing again, essays, plays, radio scripts. Slowly, carefully, he rebuilds himself. And then he begins to speak. BBC World Service, Radio Free Europe, early 1970s. The microphone is small, unassuming. It does not look like a weapon. But Markov understands its power immediately. His broadcasts are calm, reflective, devastating. He does not rant. He does not shout slogans. He simply describes Bulgaria as it is. The corruption, the fear, the hypocrisy of its leadership. He names names. He describes dinners, apartments, private conversations. He speaks of Todor Zhivkov, Bulgaria's longtime communist leader, not as a distant figurehead, but as a man, petty, paranoid, obsessed with loyalty. Inside Bulgaria, people gather around radios late at night. Windows closed, volume low. These are not mass protests. They are moments of recognition. The regime hears every word. Transcripts are made. Translations circulated. Meetings held behind closed doors. This is no longer a writer who fled. This is a traitor who continues to wound from afar. Sofia, mid-1970s, State Security Headquarters. There is no dramatic order, no shouted command, just a conclusion. Markov must be silenced, not arrested. He is beyond reach, not discredited. His audience trusts him, not intimidated. Threats have already failed. The only remaining option is removal, but Bulgaria is a small country. Its intelligence service is competent, ruthless, and limited. To strike in London, it will need help. The file is passed quietly to Moscow. Moscow, Lubyanka Building. The corridors are thick-walled, designed to keep sound in and secrets from escaping. Here, assassination is not an aberration. It is a tool, refined over decades. Ricin is discussed not as poison, but as chemistry. Delivery systems are debated like engineering problems. The KGB does not issue orders lightly, but it understands precedent. If a defector can attack the legitimacy of a regime from the safety of the West without consequence, others will follow. Approval is given. Assistance is offered. The problem becomes technical. London, 1977-1978. Markov senses the change before he understands it. Strange calls. Long silences on the line. Men who seem to notice him noticing them. A letter warning him to be careful. Another defector, Vladimir Kostov, survives a mysterious illness in Paris, later found to involve a similar mechanism, a pellet that failed to fully dissolve. Markov mentions his unease to friends, to his wife, Annabelle. He jokes about it on air. Gallows humor, sharpened by years of watching how states behave when mocked. But London feels safe. It has laws. It has newspapers. It has rules. It does not assassinate writers on bridges. September 7th, 1978, afternoon. By the time Markov reaches the BBC, his temperature is climbing rapidly. He tells colleagues about the strange incident with the umbrella. They laugh. London weather. Clumsy strangers. Bad luck. Within hours, the laughter fades. Markov begins to shake. Sweat soaks through his shirt. His skin burns. His leg aches now, deeply, radiating outward from the small wound. He is taken to St. James's Hospital. Doctors are baffled. This does not look like influenza, or food poisoning, or anything familiar. His condition deteriorates with frightening speed. Organs failing one by one, as if following a schedule. Markov remains conscious. He tells the doctors about the umbrella. He insists on it. September 11th, 1978. 4 days after crossing Waterloo Bridge, Georgi Markov is dead. Only later, during the autopsy, does a pathologist notice something strange. A tiny metallic sphere embedded in the muscle of his leg. Smaller than a grain of rice. Drilled with microscopic holes. A delivery system. A signature. Richin. The news spreads quickly through intelligence circles, then outward into the press. An umbrella assassination. It sounds absurd. It is anything but, because the message is now unmistakable. Exile is not safety. Distance is not protection. The state remembers. September 11th, 1978. London. Early evening. The rain has stopped, but the city feels heavier now. Outside St. James's Hospital, reporters cluster beneath streetlights, notebooks damp, cameras resting against their chests. The name Georgi Markov begins to circulate, first as a curiosity, then as a question, and finally as a problem. A Bulgarian writer, a BBC broadcaster, dead at 49. Inside, the corridor smells of disinfectant and stale coffee. A police officer stands near the door, hands folded, posture neutral. There is nothing dramatic about the scene. No alarms, no shouting. Just the quiet awareness that something does not fit. Because people do not die like this. Not in London, not from a pinprick. The pathologist works carefully. The body has already begun to cool when the incision is made. The cause of death, at first glance, is unclear. Multi-organ failure, massive systemic collapse. The kind of outcome doctors associate with overwhelming infection or catastrophic poisoning. But there is no sign of ingestion, no needle marks, no trauma. And then, buried deep in the muscle of the right thigh, the scalpel meets resistance. Metal. A tiny sphere is removed and placed on a tray. It barely makes a sound when it lands, smaller than a grain of rice. Perfectly machined, drilled with 2 microscopic holes that pass through its center at precise angles. The room goes quiet. This is not medical debris. This is engineering. Nah. Within hours, Scotland Yard is notified. Within a day, MI5 is informed. Within a week, intelligence services across Europe are quietly paying attention. Because the pellet is not just evidence of murder. It is a message. New Scotland Yard, September 1978. Detectives begin with the obvious questions. Who wanted Markov dead? The answer arrives almost immediately. Bulgarian exile. Open critic of a communist regime. Regular broadcaster into Eastern Europe. There is no shortage of motive. But motive is not proof. And proof, in this case, is elusive. Witnesses on Waterloo Bridge remember nothing unusual. A man with an umbrella. A brief exchange. A crowd that swallowed both of them within seconds. CTV does not exist in the way future investigators will come to expect. Photographs are grainy, memories unreliable. The assassin is gone. What remains is the weapon. Sir, Portendown, Wiltshire. The pellet is transferred under security to Britain's top chemical weapons research facility. Scientists examine it under microscopes, measure it, test residue samples scraped from its surface. The conclusion is chilling. The holes were designed to hold a toxin that dissolves slowly once inside the body. A toxin that leaves almost no trace. Ricin, extracted from castor beans. Easy to produce in small quantities. Lethal in microscopic doses. And known, intimately, to Soviet intelligence. The case changes shape. This is no longer a crime investigation alone. It is a counterintelligence problem. Umber, MI5 headquarters, Thames House. Analysts begin to assemble what they already know. They review Markov's broadcasts, the threats he received, the surveillance he suspected but could never confirm. They pull old files. A pattern emerges. Paris, August 1978, just weeks before Markov's death. Another Bulgarian defector, Vladimir Kostov, collapses after feeling a sharp pain in his back while entering the Paris metro. He survives. Barely. French doctors find a similar pellet embedded near his shoulder. It failed to fully dissolve. A malfunction. A rehearsal. To British intelligence, the implication is unavoidable. Markov was not an isolated target. He was part of a program. E.E. Sofia, Bulgarian state security. Officially, there is outrage. Condolences are issued. Accusations are denied. Western media is dismissed as hysterical. Privately, files are sealed. Names are erased. The operation is already over. Those involved are reassigned, promoted, or quietly retired. The state does not discuss its successes. But Moscow. There is no official comment at all. There never will be. For the KGB, the matter is closed the moment Markov dies. The objective was achieved. The signal delivered. London, late 1978. The British government faces a dilemma. They know, almost certainly, who is responsible. But knowing is not the same as proving. There is no confession, no captured agent, no paper trail that can survive in court. And accusing a Warsaw Pact government of assassination on British soil is not a trivial act. Diplomacy is fragile. The Cold War is already tense. Every escalation carries consequences. So the investigation continues, slowly, carefully, publicly inconclusive. The press. The story explodes. The umbrella murder. Death by ricin. Spy assassination in London. Cartoons appear. Late-night jokes follow. The absurdity of the weapon becomes the headline. An umbrella. Something mundane. British. Harmless. And that, perhaps, is what makes it so disturbing. Because the weapon is not exotic. It is ordinary. Which means it could be anywhere. Astar. Annabelle Markov. For Markov's widow, the spectacle is unbearable. She remembers the jokes her husband made, the unease he tried to laugh away, the way he insisted London was different. Now, the house feels empty in a new way, not just grief, but betrayal, the idea that safety was an illusion. Eastern Europe. Inside Bulgaria, Markov's name disappears almost overnight. His books are removed from shelves. His plays vanish from programs. His broadcasts are jammed more aggressively than before. But rumors spread anyway, quietly, dangerously. A writer killed abroad. A defector silenced. The message lands exactly where it was meant to. In Western intelligence assessments. In Washington, London, Bonn, and Paris, analysts add the Markov case to a growing list. Poisonings, disappearances, accidents, not all proven, not all acknowledged. But together, they reveal a rule the Cold War pretends does not exist. The conflict has no front lines and no sanctuary. The late 1970s, defectors grow more cautious. Security protocols tighten, simple routines change. Writers vary their routes. Journalists check behind them. Exiles begin to look over their shoulders. The psychological effect is disproportionate to the act itself. One man killed, thousands intimidated. Scotland Yard, early 1980s. The case stalls. Leads go cold. Witnesses age. Suspects remain unnamed. The file is never officially closed. It is simply set aside, because justice, in this world, has borders, and the crime crossed them too cleanly. Years later, after the Cold War ends, Bulgarian archives will open, partially. Former state security officials will hint. Defectors will confirm. Names will surface, then retreat back into ambiguity. One man, Francesco Gulino, a Danish-Italian with links to Bulgarian intelligence, will be identified as a possible operative. He will never be convicted. The umbrella will never be recovered. The chain of command will remain intact only in memory. But the meaning of the assassination does not fade. It hardens. The killing of Georgi Markov is not remembered because it was the most violent. It is remembered because it was precise, because it happened in daylight, in a capital city, with a weapon that looked like nothing at all. It revealed something essential about the Cold War, that beneath treaties and summits, beneath speeches about coexistence, there existed another logic. Colder, quieter, and far more personal. If you spoke too clearly, if you embarrassed the wrong people, if you proved that words could travel farther than borders, the state would answer, not loudly, not publicly, but decisively. The message, the aftermath, and the Cold War's quiet rules. Late 1978 to London. The investigation fades from the headlines, but it does not disappear. It settles instead into filing cabinets, intelligence briefings, and the unspoken calculations of governments that understand exactly what has happened and what responding too loudly might provoke. Officially, there is restraint. Privately, there is anger. Because what occurred on Waterloo Bridge was not just a murder. It was a breach. I'll go. For British intelligence, the implications are unsettling. A foreign power has carried out an assassination in the heart of London. In daylight, using a weapon designed to evade detection, and escaped without consequence. This is not the chaotic violence of terrorism. It is methodical, disciplined, state-directed, which means it can happen again. Thames House, MI5 briefing room. Analysts adjust assumptions that had quietly guided Western thinking since the end of the Second World War. There had always been a belief, never written down, but widely shared, that certain lines were not crossed, that Western capitals were not hunting grounds, that propaganda wars stayed on the airwaves, that assassinations, if they occurred at all, happened in darker corners of the world. Markov's death erases that comfort. The conclusion is uncomfortable, but unavoidable. The Soviet bloc is willing to kill critics abroad if the cost is low enough. And in Markov's case, the cost is almost nothing. Eastern Europe, late 1970s. The signal travels quickly. Writers hear it. Journalists understand it. Exiles feel it. The murder is discussed in whispers. Coded references, half-sentences that trail off before becoming dangerous. People change routes, avoid routines, decide quietly that some truths are better left unwritten. Not everyone is silenced, but everyone recalculates. Fear does not need to be universal. It only needs to be plausible. Sofia, Bulgarian state security, internal assessments. The operation is reviewed internally, not for morality, but for efficiency. What worked? What almost failed? What lessons can be applied next time? The malfunction in Paris, the pellet that failed to dissolve fully in Vladimir Kostov, is noted. Adjustments are made. Technical improvements discussed. Markov's death is considered a success. No arrests, no retaliation, no diplomatic rupture. The regime draws the obvious conclusion. This method works. Moscow, KGB headquarters. For the KGB, the Markov case is filed alongside others. Not as a headline event, but as confirmation of doctrine. Assassination is not policy. It is a contingency, used rarely, quietly. When other measures fail, what matters is deniability. And in London, deniability held. The West's dilemma. In Washington, policymakers debate the broader meaning. Retaliation is discussed, not in terms of revenge, but deterrence. Should intelligence officers be expelled? Should sanctions be imposed? Should names be made public, even without courtroom-proof evidence? Every option carries risk. Because escalation in the intelligence war rarely looks like escalation, until it suddenly does. So restraint wins, again. Under the umbrella becomes a symbol. As the years pass, the object itself takes on a life larger than the man it killed. The umbrella assassination becomes shorthand. A Cold War anecdote. A darkly comic footnote. The humor is uneasy. Because everyone understands the implication. If a state can weaponize something so ordinary, if murder can be hidden inside normality, then nowhere is truly neutral. 1980s, the Cold War hardens. New crises emerge. New leaders arrive. New weapons are built. Markov's name surfaces occasionally. In intelligence training, in journalism schools, in conversations about the limits of free speech under pressure. But justice does not advance. The assassin remains unnamed in court. The chain of command remains intact. The state that ordered the killing remains in power. After 1989, communism collapses across Eastern Europe. Archives open, partially. Files surface, selectively. Former officials speak cautiously. Bulgarian investigators reopen the case. British detectives travel to Sofia. Names finally appear in print, but time has done its work. Witnesses are dead. Memories faded. Paper trails incomplete. Francesco Guglino is named. Questioned. Released. The umbrella is still missing. Harker eats what remains. Georgi Markov is remembered now not just as a victim, but as a warning. He did not carry weapons. He did not organize armies. He did not plot coups. He spoke. And that was enough. Because the assassination was never meant to be hidden forever. It was meant to be understood. By writers. By defectors. By anyone tempted to believe that distance equals safety. The message was simple. You can leave the country. You can change your name. You can speak freely, but the state has a memory. And sometimes it answers. The Cold War was often described as bloodless. It was not. It was simply selective. And Georgi Markov paid the price for testing where the boundaries truly lay.